new captain, the only captain, the best captain of Star Trek Discovery, Sonequa Martin Green.
So happy to see all of you. Hi. What a warm welcome. I give you all my love. Thank you for being here. It's so nice to be here with you guys. How is everybody? Hello. I guess we're gonna get started, right? We just gonna get right into it. Here we go. You ready?
I hope. What did you do after you realized that you're going to be on the next Star Trek show and joining our group of fans forever?
Yeah. Platt, that's applause for you. Thank you for your question. It was quite a whirlwind, and I will say I love being able to sort of clear this up because I get this question quite a bit. So I was actually already finishing Walking Dead. I was shooting my last couple of episodes, closing out Sasha, when I found out about Star Trek Discovery, the fact that it was coming back to TV and that it was going to be, streaming and everything. And so it was as if one door closed and another opened almost simultaneously. So I'm very grateful. I'm very, very grateful for how God worked that out for me. Because I just went from one thing to the next, and I certainly didn't imagine I would come to this franchise that is so dearly loved and has been for so long and has had such an impact on our society, just globally. So I freaked out, number one, because I didn't know much about it. I wasn't a Trekkie, and I tried to absorb as much as I could. I only had a few weeks before I was going to start shooting, and I had to let that feeling come. I had to honor it and then let it pass for me, because you can't really create from that place. You can't create from this place of like, oh gosh, I want to do it right and I want to do it justice, and this is such a big deal. Oh my gosh, what's happening? You gotta feel it and then you gotta let it go. So that's what I did.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
So Discovery's had many captains, and of course now you are, but so you keep working with different actors as captains, and the dynamics have changed from season to season. So I was wondering, what was that like for you? Because you're always the anchor for everyone, I imagine.
Thank you for that question. It was very compelling, honestly, because from the beginning I knew that this was a journey to the chair. That was the way it was presented to me. So getting started, all of us behind the scenes knew that eventually Burnham would be the captain. And I think that's one of the things that's most poignant about our iteration of Star Trek, is because you get to see someone become who they're supposed to be. You get to see them slip and trip and fall and fail, and learn and grow and earn the chair. And I thought that was really powerful storytelling. So, of course, along the way, all of these, relationships come to the light and end up pouring into, Burnham's destiny and everyone's destiny, all the characters on the show, because everyone is still becoming who they're going to be. That self-discovery is a big part of our show, right? So I loved being able to see the different styles from, Captain Giorgio, Prime Giorgio, to Pike, of course, Lorca. But yeah, I love that because as Burnham in the story, you know, you learn so much from the people that you get to watch. You learn so much from the examples that people have set for you. So you will see, and I'm very excited for you to see the kind of captain that Burnham is, because you very much know this woman, and you know what she stands for, and you know who she is. But I still have tons to learn, right? And you get to see that too. So, yeah, it's very, I love it. I love all of the interactions that I've been able to have, and of course, everybody I've been able to work with. Everyone's brilliant. So, that's been really cool too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
What's balcony?
There you are. Hi. Hello.
I would like to know what is the main difference between filming The Walking Dead and Star Trek Discovery?
Good question. Thank you. So the differences between shooting them.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. That's a big question with a kind of multi-layered answer. So I was just telling someone earlier today at my table that shooting Walking Dead is intense. It was a very intense experience. Very strenuous in every way. So physically, of course, and then emotionally. It was a bit of a marathon, but a grueling marathon. Now there's something so completely fulfilling about that, because you know you feel it. We had just expert leadership, in my opinion, through Andy Lincoln, who played Rick, right? Hand clapper, yeah. He's something else. He really is. And so, you know, from the beginning, that is a family as well, a show family. And you kind of come in and it's like a moving train, and you just gotta jump on that train and keep going. And you know, the weather in the hundreds with the humidity, you know, 80, 90%. So it felt like a boiling wet blanket a lot. And then you're doing sort of like calisthenics or cardio. And then you're also telling this really, really intense story with these life and death stakes. So it took a lot. It took everything that we had and more to do. But I consider it to be almost my postgraduate degree, because I was a student, I was a sponge, I learned every single thing that I could. And it very much made me the artist and the actor that I am today. I mean, of course, everything sort of leads us to the moment we're in now, right? But I loved it. It was great, artistically, very fulfilling. And I do still dearly love my show family from that show. And I was able to carry that blueprint with me to Star Trek Discovery and build the show family from the ground up. And because I'm blessed to work with some brilliant, kind, egoless people, we became a family really quickly. But I will say also that Star Trek Discovery is grueling in its own way, because I'm in a lot of it. And I work crazy hours, way more hours than I worked on Walking Dead. So that has been challenging for me over the years, is of course finding that work-life balance, right? That, you know, working almost 80 hours a week, but still having the time for my family, for my husband and my children. That's been really difficult for me. And I get to fight and all that stuff in Star Trek Discovery as well as from Walking Dead. So I love that stuff. I love that that's kind of carried over. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of went all over, but I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I've kind of got a two-part question. In the latest season, Burnham has to kind of think about the freedom of going off with Booker and being a courier versus the rigidity of being in Starfleet and having to follow orders. for yourself, which is the more appealing of the two? Having the support of something like Starfleet behind you, or being free to go off and do whatever you want, whenever you want?
That's a really good question. In the story, in Star Trek Discovery at least, it was necessary for Burnham to go off and have that year alone. Because, you know, as Burnham, my entire life I have been striving, or I had been striving to be something I wasn't. So from growing up on Vulcan and having to assimilate and be as Vulcan as I possibly could, but as a human being, that created a very deep conflict within me, because every human instinct that rises up in you, nearly every moment of every day, I would have to shut down. Because, no, that's not Vulcan, that's not Vulcan, that's not Vulcan. And just having this sort of tight grip on myself obviously had an effect on me. Not to mention all of the other things that I was driven by in seasons 1 and 2, shame and guilt and all of these things. So it was very important to separate from that, because I received a great deal of absolution in season 2, which was necessary as well. But having that year alone, it was the first time that Burnham got to ask herself, okay, so who am I actually? Who am I when nobody is telling me who to be? Who am I when I don't have the umbrella of an institution to live by, to define my standards? What are my own standards? What do I truly want to do? What do I truly want to be driven by and passionate about? And it was that year alone that I think really made Burnham ready for that captaincy. Because it was after that year, it's kind of like if you love something, let it go, and you know it'll come back to you. And that's what it did at the pool of Starfleet in the United Federation of Planets. It came back, and then I knew it was true. Then I knew this is actually something that I want to do. This has not been imposed on me anymore. It's something that I have freely chosen. And I love what Burnham's mom says about duty and joy, because that's really what it is. It's, you know, they can live in tandem, and that's what Burnham found. And I think that if that had not happened, then there would have been a certain degree of faking it and putting on an image. Even as captain, I think that would have happened. But now you know you have this woman who is true to herself, finally, perhaps, yes, for the first time in her life, at least since she was a small child. So yeah, I think it was needed. I really appreciate that part of the story.
Can I ask, at the end of season 2, when Burnham's deciding, well, I have to go to the future, I have to go to this great unknown, would you yourself have made that choice to leave behind everything you know of travel to the future, maybe never see anyone from this time again, or like think, oh, that's going to be wonderful, I have no idea what it's like, something new to explore, to see yourself as Sonequa? Would that be a choice you would make, or would you say, no, I'm good where I am, sir?
That's the question, isn't it? I talk about this a lot. I talk about the how much I appreciate being someone who is of honor, a woman of honor, because everyone in our show, especially the crew of the Discovery, they're all people of honor, right? And those people would do that. And they did do that. They decided to leave everything they knew behind to save the future. And it is no small thing to be like that. It's no small thing to give up everything that you have for people that are in the future that you don't know, strangers who will never know you either, right? Completely anonymous, like ultimate sacrifice, almost in a vacuum, but doing it anyway. So I look at it and I marvel at it, especially in the time that we're in right now. And I think about the essential workers. I've been talking about this here lately quite a bit, because these people are doing that in this pandemic. They're going out and sacrificing their lives for people they don't know. And that's no small thing. So I say all of that to say, I wish that I could tell you that I would do it, that it'd be like, hey, you gonna save the future, but you ain't gonna never see your family again, and you ain't gonna never, you know, you ain't gonna know where you are, and you gonna leave everything behind. It's like I would want to do, I mean, you know, I'd be like, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? And it's like, of course Jesus would do it. And I'm like, oh gosh, can I do it though? Honestly, I could sit up here and say that, yes, I would, but would I? That's why we love seeing heroes, you know, because the people who make decisions like that are heroes. I would certainly hope that I would.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Sonequa. It's great to have you here. I heard from your castmates that you've been doing board game nights at your house with them. And I'm a huge board gamer, so I was wondering, what kind of board games do you like?
Thank you for that question. So we used to do a game called Mafia. And yes, I don't know if you guys are, that game is a lot of fun. It's a great group game. But then, you know, we thought maybe it's time for us to move on to, like, you know, some other games, because Mafia gets really intense. And we would all get really intense, and it would be so funny. But we were like, okay, maybe we're ready. It's been a few years of Mafia. Let's move on. I mean, we love running charades. We play that together. We also just we played a game recently because we weren't able to get together, you know, as often as we used to, of course, being isolated and distancing and whatnot while we were shooting. But there was one game that we played. It was a card game, and it was a lot of fun. But I'm not going to be helpful right now because I don't remember the name of it. But I think Clue is really fun. We've talked about doing that together. Yeah, it's whatever we can do. Oh, Heads Up. Heads Up is a game we play a lot. It's not a board game. It's a game on your phone, but it's kind of like a guessing charades type game. So we end up playing that a lot now too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. You already talked about the year Burnham spent alone, and I was wondering, did the writers give you a list of bullet points to say this is what happens, or did you get to make up what happened to her at that time?
I love that question. Thank you. And thank you for having me, you guys, by the way. Thank you for welcoming me and for having me. So, let me make sure I love creating, right? I love creating my story. I love creating my memories. It's one of the things that I love the most about acting in general. And I certainly have enjoyed creating my memories as Michael Burnham. And I love how the writers do it, because the writers have suggestions, absolutely. Of course, there's the words on the page, which are like what I live by. But then they also love to hear, you know, what you bring to it. And there's this great sort of art imitating life thing that happens where sometimes the things that you share, that you've created on your own, end up in the story as well, which is amazing. Like, for instance, I decided from the very beginning that I was named after my father. So Michael Burnham, you know, Sr. Named me, and there's something very cool and futuristic and, you know, I don't know, egalitarian about being named, a girl being named after her father. But then they ended up putting that into the story as well. And my husband, of all people, played my father in episode 11 of season 1 or 2. I think, baby, are you here? Is it season 1 or 2? 2. But 2, season 2. But he and I talked about how it was like the perfect amount of weird that he was playing my dad. So that's great. That was a lot of fun. But I actually created everything from that year. So I knew that I was a courier, and I went in and I did a lot of work. I went day to day to day to day of what was happening over the course of that entire year. And I journaled about it, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And then once I shot those first few episodes of season 3 after the year, you know, we all powwowed again, and they were very complimentary and encouraging at what they saw, because, you know, they said, we can see that you're different, and, you know, and so then I got to share everything. It was great. It was one of my favorite experiences on the show, period.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Hello.
First of all, I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here for some people who have been here. Welcome to this crazy tribe called Trek. Discovery is Trek, sorry, period. First of all, watching the roles you play throughout your career, there's a reoccurring pattern of playing characters that are so vulnerable, yet so incredibly strong. So thank you for all the franchises and Walking Dead and stuff, for all the evenings you filled for us. That brings me to the question of you and Mary. Every time you both on the screen, it seems like the director has already said cut 5 times, and you keep going, moving around. And I would like, if you could share some interesting ideas that you both came up, some making-ofs made a little hints that you both came up with ideas to writers saying, hey, let's do that, and you then roll that. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Thank you for that question and for your uplifting words. Thank you. Yeah, okay, so I love me some Mary, okay? Mary Weissman. I think she is utterly brilliant, first of all. I just find her sensational. I really do. Now, I'm blessed to say that about everyone on our show, but I love it. I love what we've been able to do, Mary and I, with Burnham and Tilly. Because just like everything else, there has been such change and growth, and I think that's a cornerstone of high quality storytelling, is permanent change. And you've seen that, and it's as if, you know, Burnham's journey has been a journey of sort of authenticity, and, as I was saying before, becoming true to oneself. But that's very much been Tilly's journey as well. And so her and I talk a lot on set about the impact of that, about coming into one's own, especially coming into one's own womanhood and one's own feminine power and one's own leadership style, while being friends, and what that means, and how Burnham and Tilly catapult each other, how they quicken each other, but then also how they challenge each other in that. And so I do believe that all these conversations that her and I have, because we also talk about the craft in general. You know, her and I, you know, we will just go on and on and on and on. And we also play constantly too. So when we get going, you know, you're gonna have to stop us. Right. But I think all of that filters into the relationship on the screen. And I love that, because there's such a degree of familiarity between Burnham and Tilly, and that's the way it should be, obviously. There should be such an ease with the person who you call your best friend. And I think that it comes, it can't help but come from, you know, the ease that we have with each other, as well as what we're creating in the story. Because neither one of us uses our real lives. You know, we're not kind of mimicking who we are in real life or anything like that. We're very much different than in the story than we are in real life. But that stuff still reverberates. It still has an effect. So I'm so happy and grateful that you said that, because that means a lot. That's just great to hear. That's great news that that's what you're picking up on from it. And I'm gonna make sure to tell Mary as well, because I know she'd be happy too.
Tell her to come next time. She's
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Hey. Just an acting-related question. So, on your time on set, you've acted with a few British actors, Jason Isaacs and David Ajala. You can probably tell by the accent I'm not German. Accents fascinate me. I love meeting people from all over the place, and I think it's one of the perks of your job. And I wanted to ask you specifically about accents. Are there any accents that you love to do, or are there any that you actually hate, or you can't for whatever reason?
Oh, I love that question. Right now, I'm sure my husband is rolling his eyes in the audience, right? Because you asked the right person about accents. Let me tell you something. I love them too, and am fascinated by them. James Frain is another Brit who I had the pleasure of working with, who played Sarek in the show. And I particularly love the British accent. I am pretty good at a standard British accent. I can't do London, I can't do Cockney very well, but I can do standard British pretty well. And I did it professionally one time in an off-Broadway show, and a lot of folks said they didn't know I was American. A lot of Brits that came to see it said they didn't know I was American, so I was like, yes! But I actually really struggle with German. The German accent is, it's so surprisingly melodic. And I find it hard to get into the groove of it without over exaggerating. I find it hard to like sink into it. I find Jamaican really difficult. I find Irish and Scottish very difficult. But of course I can do Southern because that's where I'm from. I can do New York because I lived there for a long time. And I can do standard British. But I always look forward to accents. I always love the challenge. In that same play where I had the British accent, I also spoke Mandarin and French. So the person I was playing was very cultured. And that was really, it was like this linguistic manifesto, but it ended up being so fulfilling because of that, because I was like working hard. And then there was the one episode on Star Trek Discovery where we all had a moment where we were speaking different languages, and I spoke some Mandarin and some Russian and some Klingon, which was a whole lot of fun as well. But yeah, I love accents too, and I wish I could do them all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey there. As being a watcher of The Walking Dead, you're used to lose, liked, or loved characters, pardon my French, sometimes in a very shitty way. What was your reaction finding out that Sasha had such a kick-ass way to go?
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. Thank you for that question. I loved it. I loved it. Because I knew ahead of time that I was going to be leaving, like I was saying before. And I knew that it would be at the end of the season. And I told them, I said, whenever you figure out, I'm gonna, do what you want. I trust you. I'm not the type of actor to sort of butt in on that. I trust those writers, and just like I trust the writers of Discovery. And so I said, so just whenever you decide what it's gonna be, just, I do wanna know though, let me know ahead of time. So they did, and I found out that I was going to be making the ultimate sacrifice as Sasha, but that I was going to be making the ultimate sacrifice and weaponizing myself. And I just thought it was perfect. I've often said that it was, nothing short of poetry, because it was the perfect end to that woman and that character arc of going from being completely closed off to everyone, having this defense mechanism that was impenetrable, to understanding that that's not the way to live, to losing everyone, losing the will to live, coming back to the other side, back to the light, realizing that the real way to live is through connection, and then as a result of that, deciding to give her life, like that, I thought it was perfect. I thought it was perfect, like perfectly bookended, and such a great character study, and nobody really wants to be a walker. I'm gonna just be honest with y'all. Like, when you start on that show, you don't want to be a walker, I guess maybe there's some people who do, but that's not really what you want to do. But I thought, man, what a perfect way though. If I was going to be a walker, this would be the way that I would want to do it. Saving the people that I love.
Closing the circle was perfect.
That's right, yeah.
Thank you
so much.
So I have to ask 2 questions.
Love
The
it.
first one is for a friend of mine who didn't want to come up to the microphone. He wants to know what your favorite uniform on the show was.
Oh, well, thank you for asking this question on his behalf. And hello to him and you. Oh, wow, that was a snort. Did you guys hear? Happens from time to time. My favorite uniform so far. Well, I really love the mirror uniform. It's really nice. Hi. Look at you. Thank you for coming up. Dankeschön. I really love the mirror uniform. I think it's gorgeous. Our costume designer, Gersha Phillips, is just a visionary. I also really love, there's a dress uniform in season 4 that you've seen a couple of clips of in the trailer, the most recent trailer. That uniform is really beautiful as well. But, you know, I mean, I've loved every uniform that I've been in, but I guess the one, how can I not mention the captain's uniform, right? It's really cool to be in that. Thank you. Oh, you had another question. Oh, yes, yes.
So, this question is from me. If there was like karaoke going on the Discovery, what would Burnham's song be?
That's a good question. Let's see. Well, listening to music in this era is not something that Burnham did. I think it would be something that Burnham does now, like recently. But I would say something disco. How could it not be disco, right? Yeah. That's what I'm gonna go with. Like all of them are awesome. So yeah, something disco for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mrs. Martin Green. How are you? Just a couple things for you.
Okay, sir.
First.
Whatever you want.
Well, first, I'm always interested in your well-being. I don't want you to panic. But to your left, there's a dragon. So just be very careful.
Thank you so much for the warning, sir.
A two-part question. First, it's a real question. It's not a joke.
Got it. Okay.
Don't worry. If you could play another role on Discovery, woman, man, alien, who would it be? And also, if you could see one of your cast members play Burnham, who would it be?
Wow, that's good. Okay, baby, okay. Well, thank you for your question, sir.
You're welcome, man.
What did you say your name was again?
Mr. Green.
Mr. Green, got it. Oh, so if I could play any other character, I really don't know how I could not say Spock. Because I think it'd be really interesting to see, to do that as a black woman. To go like full Vulcan in that way. But now maybe that's a cheat because I kind of already have done that a little bit. So I think Emperor Giorgio comes to mind. I think would be really fun. And as far as someone playing Burnham, I would love to see Oyen Oladejo. She plays Owo Shikun. I would love to see her be Burnham. I think that could be really, really cool. And then I'm doing double answers. I'm cheating. Okay. I would also like to see Mary play Burnham. I think that would be really cool. And that's who I want to be. Tilly. Sorry, Tilly. Tilly. I don't know what it is about you, sir, but I feel like I love you, and I feel like I'll love you forever.
Okay, thank you. I love you.
But I want you to ask you, so a lot of your colleagues spoke about representation, and that representation is a big part of Star Trek, and it was a big part of Star Trek for a long time because it shows a future in which tons of problems which we have today are not be there anymore. So you play as a black woman, a captain, and so my question is, did Michael Burnham, not you, but Michael Burnham, did she know of the past of the difference between black and white people, because this problems are there not anymore, but is she aware of this? Because I think Benjamin Sisko is aware of this. Yes, so did she know something about this? What did she thinking about this? So.
Thank you for your question. I love that question. Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I really think that in this sort of utopia that we have in Star Trek, I think it can only come from people really truly knowing our history. Because one of the reasons why, you know, progression doesn't happen is because there's no confrontation, right? There's no confronting the truth, the ugly truth of the past. That's the only way you can change anything, is if you acknowledge the problem, right? So I think in this world, in this future, in Trek, everybody is well aware of the history. And I think it was a big reason why it was all these problems were ultimately eradicated, is because there was true and honest confrontation. So Burnham definitely knows about her ancestors, 1000%. And I think it's one of those things that Burnham and everyone else, they look back on it and go, ooh, Lee, that was crazy. You know, thank goodness we don't live that way anymore. Because like you're saying, and like we all know, it's not just racism that's been eradicated, it's also poverty and crime in the traditional sense that we're aware of it. A lot of those things are no more, you know, so yeah, I think Burnham definitely knows. I think everybody does, for sure.
I just wanted to do a quick follow-up on the mafia topic. If you would be happy to elaborate the rules that you play with a little bit more, and if you prefer being one of the good guys or bad guys when you play with your friends.
Thank you for that question. Okay, I could talk for a long time about this, but I'm gonna be quick. We don't really have any house rules, for real. We play with, depending on how many are playing, there are, you know, a certain amount of mafia members, a certain amount of, well, usually there will be just the one cop or detective, the one doctor, and then, you know, the narrator. And I always want to be, and townspeople, of course, I always want to be a townsperson because I don't like lying like that, you know? And I mean, I know that it can be fun, but I don't like it. It really, like, it makes my heart just like bounce. But I'm pretty good at being mafia though. And a lot of us are very competitive, especially Emily Coots. Her and I are probably the most competitive. And her and I are probably mafia most often and have to do a lot of lying. But I always want to be the townsperson, and especially the cop. That's the best person to be, in my opinion. But yeah, we have a lot of fun, and we have recorded footage that perhaps we'll release onto the internet one day because it's hilarious, hilarity.
I mean, if you would like to share that, I think we all love to see it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
One question regarding Odette Fair. You and him, you both played characters in zombie franchises. Did you guys ever talk about that?
Yeah, you know, I love Odette, by the way. Yes, right? Isn't he amazing? I don't think he and I have ever talked about that correlation. Odette and I end up talking a lot about our kids. Because, you know, we're both missing our kids when we're at work. And so we just end up swapping stories about our kids and showing photos of our kids and everything. But yeah, we actually haven't discussed that. That's so interesting. Well, we'll have to, right? Next time we see each other.
Kids are more important.
That's true. Thank you.
I was really happy to see another female lead in a Star Trek show. And I was wondering, Kate Mulgrew has talked a lot about the scrutiny of being a female captain and a female lead. And this was, 20 years ago, take a few years, but I was wondering what that experience was like for you as the female lead of the new Star Trek show, especially after such a long break, or if you feel that that has really changed and that was different from what it used to be. So if you could talk about that.
Yes, thank you for that question. That's a really good question. Of course, there's been a great deal of progression since Kate Mulgrew's time. I stand on her shoulders. I also stand on Michelle Nichols' shoulders and Avery Brooks. And so, yeah, because of them, because of Kate and because of other, other women, other female, sheroes, things are better. Things are better now. But I do know what she's talking about, and I have seen it, heard it, read it, felt it. There was a great deal of backlash in the beginning when people knew that I would be helming this new iteration because I'm a Black woman. People felt like they were trying too hard or pushing too far or just checking boxes with me. And these were people who claimed to be lovers of Star Trek, which doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. Because clearly you don't really, right? mean, you don't believe in equality at all. And that's quite dangerous, actually, because you're believing in some sort of delusion. You're believing that you support diversity, and in your heart, you really don't. And that's dangerous and sad. Of course, you hope that story will change people, and you hope that through the power of the story, that people's hearts will be opened and that their beliefs will be changed. And I have seen that happen. And that is why I am so blessed to be here. Because to be a part of that kind of change reverberate throughout the world, because when each one of us changes, the world changes, right? It means more than I can say. And so the resistance that I got in the beginning, you know, it's all part of it. It's all part of it. Change is very uncomfortable, but obviously it's necessary. And then now that I'm captain, I am seeing a new wave of that resistance as a Black woman. But I am also seeing overwhelming celebration. And that was from the beginning as well, right? Because those voices are loud, but there are more voices that understand. There are more voices that believe in this better future and are willing to do what it takes to get there. So I really celebrate that, you know, calling back to something someone said earlier about this fan base, right, which is really an extended family. All of us sharing in this and, you know, letting our hearts be moved by this story, we will inevitably make better choices in our own lives to bring it to pass. So I do appreciate it. You know, you get the things, you know, I know I'm speaking in very big terms, but even in smaller terms, right? You get the people who would come up to me during seasons 1 and 2 and say, you should smile more, which is something that we women, we would be billionaires. We would be billionaires. And, you know, when it's true to the story, you know, it has to be done. And so I would say to them, I would say, well, you know, hopefully there will be something that happens to Burnham or around Burnham that will make her smile. But until then, you know, it's just very interesting that that's something that people want from women, and that's the only way they feel comfortable watching a woman in leadership is if she smiles a lot. What does that mean, right? So I also appreciate the questions that this kind of behavior brings up.
I just wanted to thank you for dealing with that, because I think it's difficult to focus on that positive feedback, what you just said, and I think it's very important to see all the diversity and representation on Discovery, and it means a lot to a lot of people, including myself. And it's even more important that there are people who are willing to put up with the scrutiny that they will then receive for doing that. So thank you for that.
Hi. Welcome to Germany. It's great to have you here at FedCon. It's so great.
Thank you.
As you see, as my look, mirror universe. That's so the kind of my two-part question. And what do you think about the storyline about Lorca? That's the end. Lorca was not the character of the Prime universe, but he was a mirror universe officer. And how was it for you to play the dark side of Michael? Then you have two versions to play in the Prime universe with Giorgio as your kind of mother in a good version. But in the mirror universe you have Giorgio and Michael in a harder version of that. And how was it for you to play this different version?
Ooh, thank you for that question. It was a lot, you guys. It was a lot. That was my first time playing a psychopath. Or a sociopath. Maybe both. That was interesting because I was pregnant at the time, early in my pregnancy, and I was having some complications with my pregnancy. Of course, everything turned out beautifully. God was very good to us, and you know, our daughter was born completely healthy and perfect. Praise God for that. But so it made it difficult being that with carrying life at the same time. And it was a sort of negotiation that I had to do in my heart and in my mind, you know, and sort of speak to the tiny little baby in there and say, like, okay, I'm gonna be going through some crazy stuff right now. I just need you to hang with me though. Like, everything's okay. You know, mommy's not actually losing her mind or being tortured in a torture device chamber. But it was interesting, and now artistically it was fulfilling because in the mirror universe there is no empathy, right? So it's easy to say, oh, it's just run by hate, and it's like, well, it's not really that, because there's definitely love. It's just perverted, right? But there's no empathy, and when there's no empathy, who wants to be there, you know? So I actually found it to be so distressing and sad at the same time as being interesting and new and fun. It was also those things too, because then you had to ask yourself, and we would get into these conversations on set, what if there really was a world like this, where the only way you get ahead is through pain and torture and killing and stealing, and, you know, where there's, you know, pride in being hateful. That is a terrible place to be, honestly. It really is. So, you know, it was very thought-provoking, the entire experience. It really was. And I had a great time creating everything. I had a great time working with Michelle. Her and I just love that woman. And we have such a beautiful connection, her and I. But it was actually quite uncomfortable, her and I, working together in that way. And we would note it. As soon as they'd say cut, we'd be like, oh. You know, like, I love you, I love you. Right? But yeah, but it was great. It's exactly the kind of thing that you want to do. It makes you dig in, it makes you better, and it makes you ask yourself questions that you never would have asked before. And I'm very grateful for that time as Mirror Burnham. And I had a lot of people telling me on set that I was scaring them, and that they didn't want to talk to me while I was Burnham. While I was Mirror Burnham, they'd be like, I'm just gonna wait till lunch to talk to you. And I'm not a method actor. I wasn't being Mirror Burnham all the time. But just whenever they would see me, you know, in between action and cut, they'd be like, ew, I don't like you right now. Which is kind of the highest compliment, I guess, as an actor. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I don't have a question, I'm sorry.
Oh, hello.
Hello. It's so lovely that you're here. I would like to talk about Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
And, 2020, it was all over the news. And then episode 1 of season 3 comes out. And there are no white males in that episode. 0. In episode 2 of season 3, there were no white male humans in that episode. And these episodes rock. They are fantastic. Nobody noticed. So later in season 3, the bridge crew in an episode, sorry I don't know the number, somebody here will do. The bridge was at one point naturally staffed completely by women alone, and nobody noticed. It was not on the news, it was not on any outlet, it was not on any blog. And I'm looking at that and going, this is fantastic, this is where we need to be. And nobody said anything.
Thank you for saying something now. Thank you. Thank you. That's what it's about, right? Because my hope and prayer is that even though it wasn't covered in the media, which unfortunately, as far as media in the States goes, that does not surprise me, but at least it was seen by millions of people. And to see is to be. To see and to be is to do. And I hope that just as you noticed, that other people did too, and even if they didn't notice consciously, that they noticed subconsciously.
Hello. After all that, I think my question is kind of, let's say, trivial, maybe.
No question is trivial.
I would like to know, when you started Discovery after such a long time, the first really new Star Trek series, and you found out that you, or let's say Michael Burnham, she is the never ever mentioned, let's say, kind of stepsister of one of the most famous characters in the whole franchise, Mr. Spock. My question is, how was that for you? The first question. The second is, were you afraid how fans would deal with that? Or would they react positive or negative? Did you think about that?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Thank you for that question, by the way. And again, thank you for your point of view. Thank you for your insight and your heart. Thank you. Apparently this was the last question, y'all. So I'm gonna answer it, and then I guess we're gonna have to say bye. But I did know. You know, it was part of me wanting, like I said, to do this story justice and to, you know, make you proud, right? But I knew that it would be a little difficult for some people to sort of wrap their heads around, especially because we didn't fully explain everything up front. It actually came out in pieces over time. And so eventually the whole story of Sarek, Amanda, Spock, and Burnham was revealed, right? But I knew that in the time it was gonna take, that some people might get impatient about it. But I always loved that they put Michael Burnham in that family, because I agree with you. I think Spock is arguably, is he not arguably one of the most popular characters in the franchise? Thanks to Leonard Nimoy and his brilliance. So I loved that they found a way to connect Burnham to this family, and therefore connect Star Trek Discovery to the franchise as a whole. And so now that connective tissue is there. We will always have it, even though now we're well beyond where any Trek has ever been, boldly, where no one has gone before, right? But we still have all of those connections. And so I appreciate it. I think it was a bit of a genius move. And I love that at least now the story is in full, and you know, you can, you know, there are answers to all the questions. It's great. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was an honor to talk to you.
Thank you. The honor is mine.